you were discussing about various elements of economic analysis. So let me quickly do a recap. What is fundamental analysis? Basically, it is a methodology that helps investors decide how to pick up a stock. Basically, it's a method of securities analysis, meaning to say, before you could select a security of your choice, a stock of your choice, you have to do some analysis whether that stock will create fortune or whether you will lose money, how will be the performance of the stock in the future, should you buy, should you sell, or should you hold. So in order to answer these questions, we have a technique called fundamental analysis. So in fundamental analysis, we study three important components: economic analysis, industry analysis, and company analysis. So you can either follow top-down approach or bottom-up approach. In bottom-up approach, first you study company, then industry, and then economy. But in top to bottom approach, you first study the bigger picture, economy, then go to industry, and then finally study company. Now, the rationale behind why you should study first economy is because if the economic environment is not conducive, then how can a company establish itself? So, government should create that ecosystem by providing essential macroeconomic variables. Only then businesses can flourish. Otherwise, businesses will perish. So, we had discussed quite a few economic indicators, economic factors. One of them is inflation, interest rates, flow of FDI and FII, agriculture and monsoon, the role of infrastructure, GDP and savings. But we missed out on one point which is actually very relevant to you. In fact, you are always worried about this, especially during the month of March. It's a headache for you. But fortunately, somewhat the government has decided not to give you this headache anymore. You know what I'm referring to. All this while, you have to decide whether you want to go with old regime or new regime. Earlier, we had only one regime, which is now referred to as old regime, which provides you a lot of options to minimize your tax liability. Given an option, would you pay taxes or would you avoid taxes? Whether it is an individual, partnership firm, Hindu undivided family, or a company, any form of business organization, they don't want to pay tax. And especially if your income is too high, then the tax rates are also very high. On top of that, you have to pay surcharge, health and education cess. So, given a chance, nobody wants to pay tax. But unfortunately, we have limited source of revenue for government, unlike countries in Middle East where they don't have personal income tax. Should you have tax or you should completely abolish taxation itself? The answer to this question was given way back, centuries back, by Manu, who has written a scripture called Manusmriti, which is perceived to be the law book of Hindus. So in Manusmriti, Manu has given some very important observation on taxation. So he says the administrators or the rulers or the kings who's running the country or a nation should avoid extremes. Extreme number one, avoiding complete taxation. That means making the entire nation tax free. Another extreme, charging exorbitant taxes, very high taxes. So he said both should be avoided. The father of economics, Adam Smith, he has also written a book called Wealth of Nations. And in his book, Wealth of Nations, he has developed four principles of taxation, which is referred to as canons of taxation. And in this four principles, one of the principle is principle of equality, which says that the tax should be based on the income earning potential of an individual. If an individual earns more, he should pay more tax. If the individual income is very limited, he should not at all pay tax. Moderate income should have moderate tax. So how much you should pay tax, that should be based on your income earning capacity, which we follow in India. We don't have a single rate of taxation for the entire nation. Unlike European countries where the tax rate is 45%, 50%, 51%, flat rate for the entire nation. But we don't have that. We have tax rates which are very progressive. Whether it is under old regime or new regime, there are different brackets. So as your income increases, your burden of tax will also increase, which is very good. That is what Adam Smith also says. How much you should pay tax, that should depend on your income capacity. So in India, we follow that. But despite of all these challenges, people don't want to pay taxes. And government want tax. So therefore, somehow there has to be a balance. Technically speaking, the income tax, what the government is collecting, it hardly contributes to government's overall tax collection. Income tax hardly contributes less than 10% of the tax collection. The prime source of taxation revenue is from indirect taxes, not from direct taxes. I hope you know the fundamental difference between direct and indirect taxes. Students write wonderful answers in the examination. Direct tax means it is directly paid. Indirect tax means it is indirectly paid. So you convert taxation into English, paraphrase, rephrase, and write the same thing. So there are many definitions of direct and indirect taxes, but to cut short and to make it more easy for you, when you earn, the taxes what you pay, they are called direct taxes. The taxes on your earnings is called direct taxes. And when you pay tax on your spending, they are called indirect tax. So technically, you have to pay tax in both the situation. When you earn, also you have to pay. When you spend, also you have to pay. What you paid you on your earnings is called direct taxes. For example, income tax. You earn salary, you earn business income, you earn house property income, or you are earning from any other source, you have to pay tax. You have received gift. Gift is also a kind of earning. You have to pay tax. You have invested, you have made money. That is also a kind of earning. You have to pay tax. You have sold property. You have earned something. That is also an earning. You have to pay tax. In fact, in India, we don't have inheritance tax like US. Otherwise, if you inherit some property from your ancestors, that is also a kind of earning on which you have to pay inheritance tax in US. It's not there in India. So the point which I'm trying to make is that in India, the collection of direct tax is not that great. It's very minimum. How many people in India pay income tax? I mean, people like me and you, we are forced to because the organization should follow compliance. They have to do something called as TDS, tax deducted at source. But what about people who work in unorganized sectors? Do they pay tax? I mean, your neighborhood shop wala, kirana store guy, or the mutton store guy is earning 10 times than what you are earning. But is he paying even 1 rupee income tax? 78% of businesses in India are unorganized. Then where will the tax come from? What's the difference between organized and unorganized sector? While going back home, you may buy some vegetables. You have two choices. Either pick up from the cart vendor who sell on the street or go to a supermarket. Go to Lulu Mart. Enjoy the shopping ambience and buy the same tomatoes. What's the difference? Lulu Mart pays income tax. Lulu Mart has GST registration, so they have to pay GST also. But the vendor who's selling on the street, where is he paying income tax? Where is he paying GST? You go to commercial streets, there is one street which is parallel to commercial street. You know what that street name is? A parallel road to commercial street. Ibrahim Sahib Street. On that street, you have small eateries. This dosa center, idli center. Their turnover is more than McDonald's and KFC on commercial street. They may look small, but their turnover is much bigger than McDonald's and KFC. I mean, do they even pay tax? And nobody questions them. But if you're a salaried employee, every month TDS will happen. So in India, we don't have a mechanism to bring unorganized sector in the tax bracket because there is no system as such. So that's the reason why I said direct tax revenue is very low. But indirect tax is something which we cannot avoid. The moment you buy something, already the price is inclusive of taxes. GST is already added. Earlier, we had different types of indirect taxes, but government decided that they will have one indirect tax in India and they consolidated all indirect taxes. Customs, excise, sales, VAT, everything was combined together and made one indirect tax called GST. And GST is sometimes referred to as Gabbar Singh tax by the opposition because it has terrorized certain industry types. When GST was rolled out, it was not rolled out in a very planned manner. Very haphazardly it was implemented. In fact, when GST was rolled out, one of the industry which was immediately hit was the food and hospitality industry because the GST on food was 18%. That means you go to a restaurant, you make a bill of 1,000 rupees. What is the GST you have to pay? 180. Immediately the sales started declining because the moment the taxes are high, what will happen to the price? Prices will increase. And you have studied the law of demand. When prices are high, the demand will decline. And with great struggle, the hotels associations across India had to voice out, they had to protest, they had to call for a ban. Only then government decided that, okay, fine, we will revise it from 18 to now 5%. Even now, the government is blowing the trumpet of digital India. That means every individual should have access to internet. Internet should be like a basic fundamental facility like water and sewerage. So if you want to make India really digital, then the tax also should be low. What is the tax on telecom and internet services in India? 18%. Every time you recharge your mobile phone, every time you're paying your broadband bill, you're paying 18% GST. And last year there was a protest within the party of Bharatiya Janata Party. Within the party, people started saying that no, GST rates are very high for banking and insurance services because banking is again a basic service. How many people in India have a bank account? How many people in India have an insurance? Right? Government is working on something called as financial inclusion. Financial inclusion means every citizen in India should have access to basic financial services, like at least one bank account. But you are charging 18% GST. So therefore, people suggested finance minister to at least reduce GST on insurance. But unfortunately, it was not revised in the last budget. It still continues to be 18%. So the point which I'm trying to make is, if the taxes are too high, what is the impact? If the taxes are too high, it will result in two things. One, it will trigger inflation. Prices will shoot up. Second, consumption will come down, as a result of which the GDP is also impacted. So taxation should be very rational, very smartly the rates have to be decided. On the other hand, if taxes are too low also, it will be a problem for the government because they also need a revenue to run the country. So it's a very tricky area, taxation. You have to be very careful in deciding the rates because the taxation system should be in a way that it should promote economic growth, it should drive consumption, and it should also help people save money. So all these objectives should be met. Economic analysis we are done. Our now focus is on company analysis, and then later we'll come to industry analysis. So in company analysis, basically we are trying to study the performance of the company, the past performance, the present situation, and where the company is heading in terms of growth in the future. In order to study this company, we are taking the help of two important parameters: financial and non-financial parameters, also known as quantitative and qualitative analysis. Quantitative analysis is much easier because we can have benchmarks. What is the best debt equity ratio? What is the best liquidity ratio? What is the best profitability ratio? What should be the EPS? What should be the dividend yield? There are some bold standards which varies from industry to industry. A moderate EPS in airline itself is great because airline industry is a non-profitable industry. So it depends. These rails are not equal for all the industries. So we can do that. We can do financial performance analysis much easier in comparison with non-financial analysis because they are qualitative, they are subjective. How will you study whether the company's marketing department is doing good or not? How will you figure out whether the governance is good or not? So for this, there are no predefined parameters. But yes, of course, we have certain key performance indicators of these areas which will help us to understand whether the marketing is good or Not. Now, the first point here, which is highlighted, it talks about marketing success. I mean, out of all the departments in an organization, why only one department is being highlighted? You have so many functional areas, starting from production and operations. If you're a manufacturing company, it's called production. If you're a service driven organization, it's called operations. Then you have HR, then you have R&D, then you have finance, then you also have marketing. But here in this list, there is only marketing. And obviously, there's a reason behind it. Why only marketing? Because marketing is the only functional area in business which is responsible for generating revenue. HR is a cost, production is a cost, R&D is a cost, but marketing is only department that generates revenue. And if your marketing is not effective, there will be a clear impact on your sales. Marketing and sales, marketing and revenue of the organization is directly linked. In fact, there are many organizations these days, especially big organizations. They are very particular as to which functional area they want to focus on. And if they feel that there are certain functional areas which does not require their attention, they are in fact outsourcing that. Apple, which is such a big company in the world, focuses only on two functions. Any idea which are those two functions which Apple focuses on? Marketing, innovation. Does Apple do manufacturing? Apple does not do any manufacturing. Manufacturing is done by the third parties, vendors, outsource partners. So in China, they have one very big outsource partner called Foxconn. In India, iPhone is manufactured by Foxconn and Tata Technologies. For the Apple, the focus is not on manufacturing, but the focus is mainly on marketing and innovation. Likewise, all your fast moving consumer goods companies, which are part of your day to day life, Apple may not be a part of your day to day life because of the affordability and accessibility issue to the common man. But of course, in your day to day life, you consume so many fast moving consumer goods, biscuits. Early morning, if you have had the chapati, definitely certain brands chapati would have consumed. Ashirwad Atta, owned by ITC. Right? There's another company called Pillsbury, Nature, so many other. Are they really manufacturing this? The answer is no, they don't. They only market. Manufacturing is done by the third party. You give the formula to them, they'll manufacture. You just develop a formula. In fact, India's biggest biscuit brands, Parle G and Britannia, both don't manufacture. Neither Britannia manufactures nor Parle. It's done by the outsourced partners. They only give formula to them. According to that formula, they have to manufacture the biscuits and their focus is on only one thing, that is market. So that's what as a company you have to do. You cannot carry out all the functions. So identify which is your core function. Flipkart owns many brands. One of the brands for which Flipkart has license in India is Nokia. Nokia license in India is held by Flipkart. Motorola license in India is held by Flipkart. So all the Motorola products, whether it is phone, TV, washing machine in India, is marketed by Flipkart. But who manufactures it? Because technically Motorola and Nokia both were shut in the past. But what is surviving is only their brand name. And the organization that owns brand name is earning money only through brand name, through brand licensing. But who is manufacturing the products? It is again manufactured by a third party. See, they are referred to as OEM and ODMs. Have you come across these terms? OEM, original equipment manufacturer, and original design manufacturer. OEM and ODM. So what do? They manufacture, but they don't market. They only manufacture. Manufacture for others. So in India, we have a company called Dixon Technologies. DIXON. Dixon Technologies, who is a third-party manufacturer. And the clients of Dixon Technologies include Samsung, LG, Flipkart, and they only make money from manufacturing for others. Their share price in the year 2017 was 1,700. Now it is 13,000. The company's share price was 1,700. Now it is 13,000. How did it go so much? Because look at the clients they had. All their clients are big brands in home appliances and electronics. And the consumption is increasing because Indians are aspirational. If you have 32-inch TV, you want to have 55 now. From 55, you want to have 75. Everybody wants to have a washing machine. So yes, there is a growth, and that's the reason the share price is also growing. So one of the things which you have to do an assessment before doing company, while doing company analysis, is that what is the business model of the company, how it is operating, how it is making money. So what is the business model of company X, company Y? Are they only manufacturing? Because if they are dependent on manufacturing to set up a manufacturing facility, how much is the cost? It's a huge capital expenditure. First, you have to buy land, which will run in crores, machinery. Why all this headache? Outsource the manufacture. So what is the model which you're following? Are you only doing in-house or is it outsource? All this you have to study as a part of the business model. How is the company earning money? All the big franchisees, something which you can associate with yourself. The QSRs, quick service restaurants. Who owns them and how do they operate? Whether it is your McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, Creamy and Crispy, Dunkin' Donuts, Costa Cafe, Barista, how all this operate? And recently we had a couple of new brands also, Popeyes. I mean, do they invest in real estate? Do they buy land? Do they set up building? Do they install machinery? What is their business model? The answer is they don't do any of these things. Their business model is only to transfer the franchisee rights to the franchise. So they earn only through franchisee rights, no investment. No investment in real estate. They have already developed one business model, and through an agreement, they will transfer the business model to the other party. The parties involved here is called franchisee, franchisor. Franchisor is the one who owns the business model, and franchisee is the one who will given the business model. And you have to operate according to the business model. So in KFC, can you sell masala puri and bhel puri? Can you customize? Can you sell Guntur chicken? There's a model. You cannot customize. You cannot play with the recipe. You cannot play with the format. You have to strictly adhere to the guidelines. Even if you copy my secret KFC recipe, I don't mind. Because you do business. But what you cannot copy is my brand name. Because in a franchisee agreement, I'm also giving you a brand. And my brand name is the one which is attracting the customers, not your recipe. So business model is also important. Now, why marketing is important than any of the other components, why marketing is on top of the list, is there is a simple reason. Marketing deals with identifying, anticipating, and satisfying the needs of the customer. Marketing starts with customer, ends with customers, revolves around customer. That's the crux of marketing. Marketing, in simple words, is all about solving customers' problems. If you have developed any product, the first thing you have to ask is my product solving any problem? If it is not, then your product will never be accepted by the market. The definition what I've given you, that marketing is not just about satisfying your needs, it is also about anticipating, which is very interesting. You may not have a need for a particular product now, but you may have the need in the future. So I have to also introspect in the future what will be your needs. Right now you don't have a need, but in the future what is the need? And marketing is also about creating a need which is not there. This is something new which brands are doing. They are creating a need which is not there, for which they end up spending a lot of money on advertisement and promotion. We did not have need for digital wallets, but the need was created. You can't keep quiet. You have to respond to the changing needs of the customers. That's the reason we say marketing is dynamic. Because as the lifestyle changes, as the technology changes, needs will also change. New needs will come into picture. So you have to respond to those needs. If you don't respond, you will become obsolete and outdated. In the automobile industry now, there is a revolution. revolution of electric vehicles. How many automobile companies have responded to this change? And how many are not responding to this change? India's biggest car maker, Maruti Suzuki, have they responded to this evolution? They're very late. They are too late to respond. But which Indian company became proactive in this? Now they are creating a separate company called Tata EV. Earlier, Tata EV was part of Tata Motors. Now they want to float a separate company called Tata, because Tata right now has the highest market share in electric cars. Tata was quick to respond. Usually Tata does not respond, but it was quick to respond. See, Tata was in a very bad position. Only now Tata has evolved. Earlier, Tata was a very slow response to any change. But now Tata has become very proactive. And after acquiring some of the international brands like JLR, so Tata is actively responding to the changes that are taking place in the environment. So therefore, apart from solving customer problem, which is attributed to be a success factor of marketing, what is also important, especially in the context of businesses which are operating in India, is that you as a marketer should create something called as value. What is the crux of marketing? Value creation. The crux of marketing is value creation. And in order to create value, you should have good understanding of the market. Marketing is all about marriage. Marriage between market and product. Both should match. Your product should meet the requirements of the market. You cannot change the requirement of the market, but you have to ensure that your product is meeting the requirement of the market. For which, companies should create value. How companies should create value? Why Xiaomi is India's number one mobile phone company? What's the reason for that? Why Xiaomi is also number one in China? What's the reason for that? Because Xiaomi always creates value for money mobile phones. More features with lesser price. More features with lesser price. That's what emerging markets require. Markets like China and India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, or you take any emerging markets like Brazil, South Africa, customers are value seekers. They want to pay less, but they want to get more, which is always challenging for a market because you cannot give more with a lesser price. But if you don't do this, you cannot survive. Unlike UK, where customers are very loyal to brand, do you find such brand loyalty in India? In India, people are not loyal to brand, they are loyal to price. So how to create value? There's a formula which I have developed. Value is defined as sum total of all the benefits received for the price paid. What is value? Sum total of benefits received for the price paid. If the benefits are greater than price, value creation. Benefits are greater than price, value creation will automatically happen. But if it is opposite, there is no value creation and customer will feel dissatisfied and that customer will not come back to you. He will go to some other brand. So are you able to create value? That's very important. Some of the big brands, they always focus on value creation. Reliance. How did Jio become India's number one telecom company? They focus on a concept called value creation. Charge less but give more. So pricing is very important in marketing. You have to get the pricing right. But going by my definition that value creation happens by comparing benefits with price, in that case, how is value creation happen in case of Apple iPhone? So the Apple iPhone, the definition is opposite. Benefits are less, but the price is more. But still there are people who are dying to buy Apple phones. The point here is that value creation need not always come from price. There are many other methods of doing value creation. One of the method is branding. What is one of the method? Brand. When we say brand, what is a brand? Brand should be like an emotion. So that kind of passion and emotion you have to create. Only then you can build a brand. So sometimes value need not come from price, but value comes from brand. So your success as an organization is attributed with your products. Your products are successful, you're a successful business organization. And if your products are not successful, you cannot become a successful organization. You think of any organization which is successful, the reason why they are successful is because of their exceptional products. And product development is again part of the marketing team. Product development, product marketing is part of the marketing team. So you have to study the success of the marketing department. Marketing success is the success of the organization. And as I said, second, you have to also study business model. In what way the company is making money? What are the elements of cost? Whether the company is dependent too much on manufacturing, or whether the company is dependent too many or too much on physical assets, or whether the company is asset light, whether the company is generating revenue from intellectual property. What are the means and ways through which the organization is generating revenue is something what you have to study as a part of business model. Competitive advantage. Because if you don't have competitive advantage, if you don't have the differentiation, you will not survive for a very long time in the competition. So, what is your competitive advantage? What is your unique factor that is differentiating you from others? Some companies' differentiating factor is technology. They are very superior technology. So, when we talk about electric vehicles, who do you think is pioneer in the world? Who has out of the box technology? Tesla. Their cars look like very futuristic. We see in sci-fi movies, no, that kind of a technology they have in the cars, which is quite amazing, very difficult to replicate, very difficult to copy them. Like this, the company in which you're investing, you want to invest, find out that company's what is the uniqueness. If that company does not have uniqueness, it will struggle to compete. So competitive advantage is a factor which will make a company better, best from others. Examples of competitive advantage. First, a brand name can be a competitive advantage. Your cost can also be a competitive advantage. You have kept the cost so low that others are not able to give the product to customers at such a less price. So your pricing and cost can be a competitive advantage. Your brand name can be a competitive advantage. Your product depth can be a competitive advantage. And then, of course, you also have management, the team of people who are leading the company, the team of people who are responsible for making important long-term strategic decisions. Who are those people? What is their qualification? What is their experience? What is their background? All that data is made publicly available. So you can go and study the profile of the management. Because if the management is having a good leadership team, which is extremely important, leadership can make or break the organization. Then also ethical practices. Is the company ethical? Is the company value driven? That is understood by their corporate governance policies. So, all these points, what you see here, can be broken down into questions. So, these are the questions which you have to ask and collect the data. So, first set of questions are pertaining to management and governance. So, question number one: how old is the company? If the company is old, that means it has stood the test of time. Because over a period of time, we have gone through many revolutions, technological revolution, right? Over the period of time, trends would have changed. So if the company is old, it's a testimony that company has survived and it has stood the test of time. It has gone through different revolutions. So that's a good indication. Question number two: who are the promoters? Who are the people who have started the company? Promoters are basically people who start the company. So, who are the promoters? What is their educational background? What is their qualification? What is their experience? So, this is also an important question. Next question is basically talking about uh, the management, the routine operations. This can be a serious issue. Is the company run by family or is it run by professionals? Which one would you prefer as an investor? If it is run by family, you know what will happen in Indian context. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gham, right? So at one point in time, the family members will indulge in fight. They will claim the ownership, they'll claim the stake. And whose money is at stake? Shareholders' money. So this family run business is always a headache, right? Even with the best of the best companies like Reliance, I mean, which has gone through this same issue. The founder of Reliance Empire is Dhirubhai Ambani. Sons, Mukesh and Dhirubhai Ambani, Mukesh and Anil. So what happened after Dhirubhai Ambani's death? When he was in hospital itself, on ventilator, both the sons were fighting as to who will get. So both the sons were fighting, and because both the sons were fighting, the stock price crashed because we don't know who's the successor. Who will take over? Is it Anil or is it Mukesh? Under whose hands the company will? And there was no succession plan. Mother had to intervene. Kokila Ben was the mother of Anil and Mukesh, decided who will get what. The entire empire was split between two brothers. And one brother has not done well. Anil, most of his companies collapsed. One of the biggest company which collapsed, because of which he was supposed to go to jail also. The court said you will be sent to jail. I'm talking about Reliance Communication. Before Jio, we also had a company called Reliance Communication, which was owned by Anil, which went bankrupt and was not able to pay millions of rupees to the lenders. So lenders went to court. The case went on for a very long time. And finally, court gave an order that if you don't settle in 3 days, we will arrest you. You will be sent to jail. So Mukesh, his brother, bought all the assets of Reliance Communication and supported him. So he didn't go to jail. So one son was a disaster, but another son is doing well, Mukesh. But who's the successor of Mukesh now? Who will take over Reliance Industries Limited? Two brothers have two different group of companies. The company which is run by Mukesh is called RIL, Reliance Industries Limited. The other company is called ADAG, Anil Dhirubhai Ambani Group, ADH. That group is almost gone now, but this is India's biggest company in terms of market capitalization, in terms of profits, in terms of tax payment. Reliance stands at number one. So who's the successor? Two sons are there. There's a daughter also. Who will take over the empire? Still, there is not much clarity. But investors need clarity because investors want to know who will be the successor. But that's the only problem in family-run business, that there is at some point in time dispute will emerge and the company may get split, leaving the shareholders in a tough situation. So we have to figure out whether the company is run by professionals or is it managed by family. This question is very important. And what is the public image? What is the public perception? Public perception matters a lot, because if you have a good public image, good public perception, no matter how many brands you launch, how many products you launch, there is always an acceptance because of the reputation. So during the break, we went to a bakery to have tea, and he found that one particular biscuit wrapper was quite attractive. It was blue in color, so he said, "Give me this." And the moment he saw the name, it was written as Oreo. So he rejected it and said, "No, no, I don't want this. Give me some other brand." Because he did not knew that Oreo is actually a brand of Cadbury. And at that time, it was not written action. It was just launched in India. And it was not written also that Oreo is from Cadbury. But the moment I said, "Sir, it is actually a brand from Cadbury," then he asked the guy to again give it back. I mean, give the product again. So the name Cadbury gave him confidence to buy that product, because Cadbury is a well-established brand with good reputation. So if you have a good reputation, what will happen is the acceptance will be very good. And no matter how many times you launch new products, you get into new segments, people will still buy. See, Reliance is able to get into new segments. The reason why, because it already has a well-established brand. It is venturing into segments which is unknown to Reliance. It bought a brand called Campa, and it is competing with world's largest beverage maker, Coca-Cola. After water, tea and coffee, which is the fourth largest consumed beverage in the world, Coca-Cola. But that's how Reliance is. Reliance always believes in a strategy called disruption. Whichever market it enters, it completely disrupts the market. Reliance long-term goal also is to become India's number one OTT platform, which it has become after a true acquisition. See, if you want to survive, I was talking about competitive advantage. There are two strategies basically to fight competition, which you were taught in your second semester in a subject called strategic management. Do you remember the subject? Strategic management. Strategy number one. Strategy number one is to finish your competitors. The best way to compete is to finish your competitors. When you finish your competitors, there is nothing left. You are the king. Did Reliance do this? It did in telecom. Finished all the competitors. Now Reliance has ventured into a new platform, OTT. Here also Reliance is playing the same game. The strategy seems to be same. So this strategy in business is called red ocean strategy. Red ocean strategy is all about finishing the competition by finishing your competitors. A strategy which is opposite to this is called blue ocean. In blue ocean, you don't finish your competitors continue to exist, but you become superior to your competitors. Now, to become superior, you need to have something unique. So that is called blue ocean strategy, something which Apple follows. Apple is always ahead of its competitors. How Apple is ahead of its competitors always? What's the reason for that? The reason for that is this: innovation and technology, because Apple products have very unique value proposition, and that's the reason people want to buy Apple, not just because of the brand name, but also the kind of technology Apple brings in. Every time it launches new product, there's some new technology, there's some new unique technology. So always Apple has been a trendsetter when it comes to technology. So Apple believes in blue ocean. Always be ahead of your competitors by offering something which is very unique, which your competitors are not able to mimic. Right? So technology. So the company in which you're planning to invest, do they have latest technology? First of all, you should have latest technology. Second, you should have a strong R&D that is working on future technology. 2 points. Have latest technology, and second, you should also have future technology. So having a future technology, it requires you to invest heavily in the R&D, right? So what is the future technology when it comes to public transportation? What is the future technology you can think of? Public transportation runs on fossil fuels, which is a problem for the environment. So what the automobile companies are doing? Are they able to develop an alternative source of fuel? Or, I mean, how long since fossil fuels were invented? Way centuries back. But still, even now, the entire world runs on fossil fuels, petrol and diesel. Why there is no alternative source of energy developed so far? What are these companies doing? Now all the companies are under pressures. See, as a part of governance, we were talking about management and governance. As a part of governance, every company has to work towards sustainability goals. The objective of the management and the governance team is to ensure that company is working towards sustainability goal and company becomes sustainable. So what are you doing to preserve the environment? What actions have you taken? What initiatives have you taken? That is now a separate report that should be presented with financial report. Earlier, there was no commitment towards sustainability. Now it has become a mandate. So what innovation have you done? Out of all the automobile companies that are present in the world, car makers, which car maker has actually come up with a revolutionary future technology which will replace fossil fuels? Which company is the world's largest car maker? Any idea? Any guesses? I mean, it keeps changing because the crown of whose top is decided based on sales. Whoever sell highest number of cars, that company will become the market leader. At one point in time, the biggest car maker, Toyota, was dethroned. You know by whom? The Volkswagen Group, Germany. What was the strategy? You know what Volkswagen did? Because in US, the emission standards are quite rigid. In India, you have seen how lightly we take emission. If an automobile is rejected in all the countries in the world, it will still be accepted with open heart in India. Have you seen Piaggio, a brand called Piaggio? Italian company. They make this luggage autos, goods auto, Piaggio Ape it's called. And there are diesel autos. When you go behind them, you'll be irritated to overtake that vehicle because the kind of emission this Piaggio autos give, you feel sometimes you should take a pipe, connect it to the auto silencer and give it till the driver's mouth. So he feels how bad it is to drive behind these autos. But we can't blame auto drivers or owners. We have to blame the government. We are still struggling with Bharat Stage 6. Our emission standards are Bharat Stage 6. But European emission standards are much more higher. So India has become a dumping ground for all the automobile companies to come and dump their old outdated vehicles here in India because we are not taking environment very serious. But in US, environmental standards are very rigid. So in order to make its way to US, you know what Volkswagen did? They fit a cheat device inside the car. And every time you do a emission test, you all have done emission tests for your vehicles. The emission levels will show very less because of this cheat device. And nobody found. In Europe, the emission standards are very high. In US, it's very high. So this company was selling highest number of cars because emission standards are so high that every country is giving green signal. Okay, you come here. But later, who found this? The US authorities found that they have fixed the cheat device, and whenever you do emission test, deliberately the emission levels will show. The moment this came to news, the first person to resign was the CEO of the company. People started questioning the governance of the company because in order to grow, will you do all the unethical things? Immediately, the share price crashed. And from world's number one car maker, Volkswagen is still struggling to make up its image because the image has completely tarnished by this unethical practice. But there is one company which is continuously striving towards sustainability goals, and that company is Toyota, a Japanese company which has developed hydrogen cell based fuel. Now, hydrogen is one of the gases which is available in plenty in our atmosphere, and hydrogen can also be obtained from water. So, therefore, this is the future technology. And Toyota has already launched 3-4 models. They are not prototypes, they are actually commercialized vehicles that runs on hydrogen fuels, cells. And now most of the other companies taking the lead from Toyota, they are trying to work on hydrogen fuel, including your favorite Indian Railways is planning to come up with a hydrogen engine by 2030. By 2030, Indian Railways wants to come up with an engine that runs on hydrogen fuel. So that's the future. So are you future ready? The present is EV, electric vehicles. Electric vehicles is also not 100% clean and green because batteries are quite toxic. So therefore, the future is hydrogen. So hardly there are 1 or 2 car makers in the world who have this technology, but all other car makers don't have this technology. So therefore, this is also one of the things which you have to look for whenever you're investing, that what is the kind of technology the company has. So these are the questions which you have to ask. See, in case if you don't have technology, because unfortunately Indian companies, they always lacked technology. And that's the reason why we had to dependent on foreign company. India's first car company. Any guesses? No, India's first car company was not Tata. Tata launched car very late. They were into trucks. And they were making trucks in collaboration with BMW. They didn't start making trucks on their own. So in case if you don't have technology, the point which I'm trying to make is that you have to collaborate. You have to collaborate with companies who have technology. You check our history. Do you remember there was a company called Kinetic Honda? Likewise, we also had Hero Honda. But why did Honda say to Hero, talak, 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 and got separated? Why did Hero Honda got separated? Why did TVS Suzuki got separated? You know, we had TVS Suzuki also. Earlier, it was not just TVS, it was TVS Suzuki. Yamaha Escorts. You take any India's automobile company, they always had partnership with foreign companies because we don't have technology, because of which we are dependent on foreign companies. But after collaborating, why are we collaborating with them? So that we can learn their technology. So after learning their technology, then we say, okay, fine, now we can do it on our own. That's what TVS did. TVS Suzuki was one company, but now they two are two different companies. Hero Honda, they are now two different companies. Ashok Leyland had many collaborations, but now they are an independent company, so they can do it on their own. So over the period of time, our R&D has improved because of collaborations. So do you have any collaboration? The company in which you're planning to invest, if they don't have technology, it's okay. At least they should have collaboration. But this collaboration is also a challenge because at one point in time, either one of the partners will not be happy with the collaboration. You take the history of collaborations, we always had management issues, ownership issues with collaborations. But to begin, yes, why not? Especially Tata is one of those companies who has a history of collaboration. Tata was not an expert in telecom, but they had to collaborate with a Japanese company called Docomo. So Docomo was a Japanese company. Tata was not good at direct to home cable service, though, so they had to collaborate with Sky. Tata, Sky. Sky was a British company, right? But now, yes, after learning their technology, they have become independent. So you have to also ask this question: is there any foreign collaboration? Where is the unit located? Where is the factory located? Because the location of the factory also matters. So if it is located strategically, then accessibility will become much more easier. Production facilities, is it totally dependent on human beings or is it automated? So that's another question you have to ask. Uh, is the size supporting economies of scale? What is economies of scale? Economies of scale is the volume at which you produce that will help you to bring down the cost. Higher the volume, lower is your cost of production. The 45 rupees cool drink bottle which you buy, 750 ml, which will cost you 45 rupees. Or alternatively, you people also buy 200 ml, 20 rupees bottle. What is the cost of manufacturing that? Coke, Pepsi, Thumbs Up, whichever product you drink, 20 rupees, 200 ml. The cost of manufacturing is just 2 rupees. Because the volume is so high, then the production cost drastically come down, the fixed cost drastically come down. So the scale of manufacturing matters a lot. So that is something which you have to question. What are the production trends? Are the company following those trends? What is the raw material situation? Is the company dependent on only one supplier? Are there multiple suppliers? Because if it is only one supplier, then it's a red flag. Because if that supplier fails, then your entire production will come to a halt. So are you sourcing from multiple supplier? So that is also a question that needs to be asked. And what about usage of power? The factories what you're operating, are they totally dependent on electricity? Because if they're dependent on electricity, you know how reliable is electric supply in especially cities. Forget about rural areas. In cities, if there is a small rain, then the power goes off. So if your factory runs and depends totally on that power, then it might be an issue. So are you having green factories by installing solar panels? Are you running on solar power? If it is, then it's a good option. Uh, are there adequate arrangement for alternative sources of power? So that's another question you have to ask. Now, these are marketing related questions which you have to look in a company. Opportunities and threats are from outside. Strengths and weaknesses are from inside. So these are some of the common parameters of SWOT which you will come across in most of the companies. For example, one of the strength can be technology, something which I was discussing in the last class. Technology can be a competitive advantage that can differentiate you with other companies. So therefore, do you have that competitive advantage in the company in which you are planning to invest? So do they have latest technology? This is something which you can look for in all the companies which are planning to invest. These are some of the good strengths which you have to find in all the companies. So it all depends on the nature of the company. Some of the companies may not have this, they may have something else. But the point here is that you have to do a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis will give you a better picture as to what the strengths, weaknesses, and what are the opportunities and threats the company is encountering. Apart from this, we have to also do something called as financial analysis. So, first of all, why are we studying financial performance? What's the reason behind that? These are the four reasons as to why we have to do financial analysis. Three major indicators of financial performance. One of the important indicator of financial performance is profitability. So the company in which you're planning to invest, is it earning money? Is it profitable? Or is it a loss-making company? If the company is making loss, since how long the company is making losses? And is there any scope for making profit in the future? So these are the questions which you have to ask. Well, if the company is making loss, how long will the company continue to make loss? What are the reasons behind why companies is making losses? So the company would have made loss in the past, but in the present, has it made any profit? So those profit trends you have to study. Second measure of performance is liquidity, that is availability of cash. So does the company have sufficient cash to meet the routine requirements of the business, to meet some of its expenditure, to invest in the future? Does the company have sufficient cash? What is the cash position of the company? And third question, is the company in a position to repay all its debts? So does the company have sufficient reserves made to pay all its debts? Does the company have sufficient cash balance to pay all the debts? So these are the three important measures: liquidity, profitability, and solvency. This also is an indication of operational efficiency. So operational efficiency refers to your day-to-day cash management. So these are the things which you have to study. Second, you have to also study the company's future by estimating the cash flows. In the future, how will be the cash inflows of the company? What is the future trajectory? So based on that, you have to also make a decision. Then you have to also see what is the revenue growth. Some companies may not be profitable, but their sales growth are very good. Their sales continue to grow, but unfortunately, there may not be good profitability because their expenses are on the higher side. But the revenue is good. Revenue means sales. So revenue and profit, there's a difference. Revenue means sales and profit means sales minus all the expenses is called net profit. So there is a possibility that your revenue may be good, but your profits are not that great because you have too much of expenses to meet. So what are those expenses which are actually pulling you back? So those introspections also needs to be done. In fact, I'll be going through some of the ratios and explain you what these ratios are. And I'll also share some of the financial data of the companies that will give you a better understanding. What are the sources of these parameters? So we have three sources. One is the profit. In order to understand the profitability of the company, we have to have a look at the balance sheet. In order to understand the liquidity of the company, we have to look at the cash flow statement. And in order to understand the solvency position of the company, we have to look at the balance sheet. So these are the sources of data through which we have to do financial analysis. Now, in order to study all this parameter, we have different ratios. In fact, there are 5 sets of ratios. And these 5 ratios will help you to understand the complete financial picture of the company. Now, some of the new ratios here are profitability. Of course, you are aware. Liquidity is something which you are familiar with. Solvency, again, talks about your ability to pay the debts. What is also important is your efficiency ratios. Because in the working capital cycle, you have studied cash flow statement in management accounting. You have also studied the fund flow statement. What is the starting point of working capital management cycle? The starting point of working capital management cycle is cash. With cash, you buy raw materials. Then from raw materials, what's the next step? There is work in progress. There is work in progress. Once the work in progress period gets over, there is a finished goods. Those finished goods you can sell either on cash basis or on credit basis. So if you sell them on credit basis, that will get converted into debtors. Your inventory will get converted into debtors. So therefore, how efficient is your working capital cycle? How quickly are you able to convert your inventory into cash? Because if it is taking too much of time for you to convert your inventory into cash, then you will face shortage of cash, and unnecessarily you're piling up inventory. Your inventory is not moving fast. So there is always an inventory risk also. All the inventory what you have made, all the products what you have manufactured, if there are no demand for those products, if some other new product comes in the market, how will you get rid of old inventory? So the success of your business depends on your inventory management. How quickly you're able to handle and move the inventory. Something which we discussed during the case study of DMart, in which I told you that DMart does not pile up expensive inventory. Their entire product range, right? You get to buy expensive stuff in DMart, 3,000, 4,000 worth of jeans. No. What's the maximum rate? Maybe 999. That's it. So the inventory management itself is like that. They don't pile up items which are very expensive, because if you invest in expensive goods, you need a lot of cash. So those efficiency ratios are actually helping us how quickly we are able to convert our current assets into cash. So that is very important. And then you also have ratios that talks about valuation, the worth of your company. So these ratios also we will discuss little later. Now I just want to show you some data. This is the snapshot of Infosys. As you can see here, this is not a comparative, just the data of the last year. In terms of revenue, you can see compared to 2023, the revenue of Infosys has gone up by 4.7%, which is an indication that there is a growth in the revenue. Revenue is not stagnant. What is their operating profit margin? Before deducting all administrative marketing expenses, what is the profit which they have earned? Earnings before depreciation, interest, tax, and amortization is called operating profit. So their operating profit margin is 20.7%. What is their net profit? Compared to last year, the net profit has almost increased by 9%, which is a good sign. And earning per share has also increased by 10%. Return on equity, all that shareholders' money which they have raised in the form of shares, on that money, what is the profit they are earning? Return on equity is nothing but profit after tax divided by equity capital into 100 will give you return on equity. So return on equity is very high. 32.1% is a very good number. And cash flow, after meeting all the capital expenditure, after meeting all the revenue expenditure, what is the cash flow they have? So that's the cash flow, which has increased by 12% compared to last year. And dividend per share has also, I mean, Infosys is one of those companies which does not have any debt. It's a debt-free company. Infosys is a debt-free company. Now we will also look at another company. This is Tech Mahindra. So this is the financial picture of Tech Mahindra in 2024. When you see the year-on-year change, you see that there is a negative results, because compared to last year, their revenue has declined. Compared to last year, their operating profit has come down by 38%. Net profit has declined by 51.2%. Earning per share has also gone down. Total assets. So all parameters are actually showing a declining trend in comparison with company is profitable. But is there a progress compared to last year? Year on year progress, unfortunately, is not there. So what is the reason for this? What happened? What went wrong? Because last year and this year performance is not matching. There's a declining trend. So we have to see what is the reason for this. Is the reason and because of an external factor? Because software companies, their revenue is totally dependent from foreign markets. The major market of revenues for software companies is US, UK, Europe. So if there is economic crisis in these countries, their revenue will automatically decline. Is it because of an external factor or internal factor? We don't know. Now let's do a comparison between automobile companies. So I've done a comparison between all the automobile companies, the major ones: Suzuki, Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata Motors, Eicher Motors, Force Motors, and Ashok Leyland. Now, what's one thing common in all this, that all these companies are profitable companies. But which company has shown exceptional performance? What is that indicator that will help us to understand this? Is the net profit year on year growth compared to 2023 in 24. Is there a progress? Maruti Suzuki. Progress is to an extent of 63%. Mahindra and Mahindra also has grown by 63%. Their profit has grown by 63%. But a company which has outnumbered everybody and has delivered surprising results is Tata Motors. Compared to last year, the revenue has increased by 222%, which is an exceptional growth rate. And in fact, a company which is near to this is Force Motors, who also have delivered a year-on-year profit growth of 190%. Other companies are in the range of between 50 to 100. But the only company which has done exceptional is Tata Motors. So therefore, Tata Motors numbers seems to be quite impressive. And that's the reason why the share price has also done extremely well, because the company has delivered tremendous results. Financial analysis will give you a picture where does the company stands, because numbers speak. Every corporate action what you're taking, that corporate action should translate into these numbers. For example, I'm changing my CEO. If I change my CEO, what first of all, why am I changing my CEO? Because I want to improve my performance. So if I have changed the CEO should show up here. The change should show up here, right? If I'm taking up additional investment, I'm setting up 2 more factories in India. That should show up here. So all my strategic decisions should get translated into better performance in terms of numbers. So that's the reason numbers actually speak as to what and where exactly the company stands. So therefore, since you people are doing a project this year, if I'm not wrong, and I'm also sure that you're not sure where you're going. So one of the things that you can do is do this: comparative financial performance, a study on comparative financial performance of automobile industry in India. This can be your project in which you're trying to compare. I've just used only 3 or 4 parameters here. Likewise, I had shown you in the previous slide different ratios. In fact, you can do financial performance of all the automobile company based on all these ratios. And after doing all these ratios, you can also do the stock price performance. So that itself can become your project if you really seriously want to do. Why we are doing industry analysis? What's the reason behind this? And as a part of industry analysis, what is that you have to study? When you're doing industry analysis, what is that you have to study? So basically, these are the factors which you have to study, because the underlying assumption is that all the companies combined together, they represent a certain industry. Previously, we saw 5, 6 automobile companies. They represent automobile industry. So one of the point here is that if the industry itself is having certain issues, is it possible for an individual company which is part of that industry to overcome that issue and outperform the industry? For example, you are aware that our city, Bangalore city, was not just known as Garden City, it is also known as by other names. It is also called as the pub city of India because it has highest number of pubs. Beer capital of India because the highest number of beer is consumed here. It was also known as a silk city. Bangalore was also known as the silk city because our silk industry was very strong. Where do you see silk industry now? Is it still existing or has it completely disappeared? In fact, how many of you have gone to Mantri Mall in Malleshwaram? That actually used to be a silk emporium because we were taken as a part of industry visit in school to that place. So I still remember that there was a stone building there actually. And Malleshwaram and all traditional areas of Bangalore, whether it is Jayanagar, Malleshwaram, you used to find a lot of silk shops, showrooms. So where have they gone? Has this industry completely vanished? Is there any scope for this industry in the future? What went wrong? What are the reasons for the demise of this industry? What's your interpretation? One of the reasons is westernization. One of the reasons is westernization. Because of westernization, our cultural habits have changed. Now, you take up any wedding, people don't follow the traditions which earlier generations used to follow. It's a mix of everything, mix of all cultures. And you being women, when was the last time you have worn a sari? When did the last time you wear a sari? And the moment you wear it, it will be a big struggle on that day. That will be the day of, it will be declared as uncomfortability. Was entire day. So, is there a demand for silk saris? First of all, demand has completely declined. So, one of the reason is westernization. Second is that we have alternatives, and people are no longer following traditions and customs, because of which this industry has completely disappeared. What government did to protect this industry? What government has done to protect this industry? Did government give any support, subsidy? Nothing. So this industry is totally gone. So it is dead right now. Every industry has a product life cycle. Just like you have studied in marketing product life cycle, industry also has a product life cycle. So you have to also do an introspection. The company in which you're planning to invest your hard-earned money, which part of industry life cycle is your company? The first stage is called introduction stage. And unfortunately, in introduction stage, there is no profitability. Why? Because capital expenditure is so huge. Marketing cost is so huge that no companies end up making profit in introduction stage. So if I say that the EV industry in India is in introduction stage, would you agree? Still, there is no wide acceptance. People still have fear when they plan to buy, if they're planning to buy a car or a bike that runs on electricity. So still it is in a nascent stage, still in introduction stage. And introduction stage is non-profitable stage, unfortunately. Which industry is in decline stage? The industry is already done. It's almost on the verge of closure. Which industry would you rate as an industry which is in declining stage? Because in declining stage also there is no profitability. Introduction stage also no profitability. Declining stage also no profit. So industries which are in declining stage, one of the industry is direct to home cable industry. Direct to home cable, D2H. So D2H industry is no longer an industry which can continue to make profit. And what is the reason for the decline of D2H industry? What went wrong with direct to home cable industry? How did this industry grow? What is the reason behind it? The reason for the growth of this industry was a bill that was passed in the parliament. So government laws can create opportunity and it can also pose threats. Government policy can do both. It can create opportunities, it can pose threats. It all started with passing of digitalization of cable services bill in the parliament. The moment this bill was passed, it created opportunities. Who were our conventional cable? How did we, just to go back 20, 30 years in the history. How did we used to get cable? We used to have one cable guy, cable mama, cable uncle, and he will be on great demand. If you call him this Sunday, he will come next Sunday. and he won't come on. And from one cable, 5 households will be given connection. Nobody will get proper clarity. In that fight, 3, 4 will be illegal. So people had very bad service and bad experience. And the moment government said that henceforth, if you want to watch cable, you should have a set-top box at home. What is digitalization of cable services bill? Basically to convert analog into digital. And this paved way for entry of corporate wala to become our cable wala. Earlier, corporates were not serious about this business. The government passed this bill. It was a foray of corporates into this business. So Reliance was one of the player. Tata was one of the player. Sun is one of the player. Airtel is one of the player. Videocon, one of the player. Dish TV, one of the players. So this sector became organized. It became formal. So that was a time when the growth was tremendous. And companies went public also. Videocon became a public limited company by listing the shares. Dish TV became a public limited company because for growth you need more and more money. But all that has now boiled down into a situation where none of these companies are profitable. And as you pointed out, the reason for their demise is advancement of new technology. New technology comes and your business gets disrupted. Even though these companies are trying to adopt the new technology by converting their ordinary box into a smart box, right? So that effort has made them to hang on to this stage. They are there in declining stage for a long time. And after declining stage, what is the next stage? After declining stage, either you disappear or there's a revival. What is after declining stage? Revival is possible. And all direct to home cable companies after declining stage, they are trying to going through a phase called revival. So that's in revival stage. Which industry is in maturity stage? Are all the fintech companies in maturity stage? All the digital wallets you use, it's already gone to a stage where we have accepted them and we are okay to use them. Maturity stage. So in which stage the profitability is high? Growth stage and maturity stage, the profitability is usually high. But in introduction and declining stage, the profitability is very low. So you cannot take a bet on those companies which are in declining stage. Industry which is in declining stage cannot take a bet. But yes, introduction stage is a stage for you to take the risk and invest. So you have to also study something called as industry life cycles. That will give you a better understanding. Why you should do industry analysis is because industry analysis will also help you to compare your target company with their competitors. So if you're planning to invest in Tata Motors, you have to also see what others are doing, how others are doing. So that is where industry analysis will also be quite handy. And also to see what are the specific types or parameters that are posing as a threat to the industry. What is a threat that your industry is facing? What is that major threat? Tobacco companies, what is a major threat for them? Is it consumption? Consumption is not a threat because every year the consumers are increasing. Then what's a threat? Government policies is always a threat for them. Tax policy is always a threat for them. So that is the major threat factor. For some, the threat can be a technology. So you have to understand what are these threats. So these are the parameters that you have to study in detail. So doing industry analysis will help you to understand these aspects. Something which I was talking about is regulatory environment. See, recently, High Court of Bangalore has imposed a ban on two-wheeler taxis, which was an ongoing issue for a very long time. So now what will happen to the future of these companies? Because some of these companies were making good revenue from bike taxes. But now government, even the government did not intervene, but the court had to intervene and ban this. So what is the future now? What will happen to the future of bike taxes in India? That remains uncertain. So regulatory environment are nothing but a set of government policies and laws and regulations that can create a lot of uncertainty to your business. So therefore, this is something which you have to see. The industry in which you're planning to invest, whether the legal environment of that industry is certain or not. Is there a certainty? Are there proper policies? That will help you here. Now, we have something called as Michael Porter Five Forces. That is purely to understand the competition. So Michael Porter is a businessman and he's also a professor at Harvard. So the best way to understand the competition, because one of the reasons why most of the companies fail, one common reason and the most common reason why companies fail is because they are not able to cope up with the competition. Whether it is a small business or whether it is a big multinational company, one common factor for their failure is always competition. You take any industry, competition would have caused a big disruption in that industry. Airline. What is the issue with airline companies? What problem airline companies are facing out of these factors? Market size and growth. Is it good or is it bad? Are more and more people using air transport in India? Is the air traffic growing in India? Will it continue to grow in the future? The answer is yes, because our population is quite big. Out of 150 crore people in India, how many of them have access to air transport? If you say 5%, the number is too less. That means there is a potential for growth in the future, which is nice. Out of 150 crore people, how many people have life insurance in India? Maybe 2%. That is actually very good because we still have potential. So we always see by the market size. What is the market size and what is the coverage? If an insurance company is having a confusion, should I go to US or should I come to India? What would you recommend? Going to US is of no use because the market is already captured. The market is already organized. The competition is already tough. The growth is almost stagnant. But in India, there is potential because not everybody has insurance and the market size is too big. So this is a market with a lot of potential. So that's how you evaluate market size. Is India the right market for Ferrari? I mean, Indian roads are not right for Ferrari, but what about the market? How many millionaires and billionaires do we have in India? Out of 150 crore, do we have at least 1% billionaires in India? 1%. That 1% is greater than Australia. Technically speaking, India is better market than Australia. So that's the reason why all the super sports car makers are coming to India now, because they perceive India as one of the potential markets. Even though it's a niche market, but still the number is there. Out of 150 crore, 1% can afford, it's a great number. So therefore, that is called market size. What is the potential that the market is offering to the company to do business? So that is what you have to do an assessment of. Now coming back to Michael Porter. So Michael Porter has identified 5 forces to study competition. His first factor is to figure out whether there is industry rivalry or not. Is there a cutthroat competition in the industry in which you're planning to invest? Are there too many companies fighting for the market share? So if industry rivalry is cutthroat, then definitely no industry will end up making profit because everybody is fighting for the market share. And how do companies usually fight? What is the basis of competition? How do we fight the competition? On what basis? What is the Brahmastra used by the companies to fight competition? Something which you are familiar with. The first weapon to fight competition, and it is the best weapon. It can actually kill your competitors if you are able to get this right. Price. Any rivalry starts with price war, and price war will completely demolish the entire industry. So surviving price war is very difficult. But unfortunately, when price war starts, nobody makes profit. It's all about survival. How long can you survive? Because pricing as a strategy to fight competition is only for short term. You can't have pricing strategy as a long term and a permanent strategy. All those companies which have used price war as a strategy, only few have survived. You take any industry, you take telecom industry, we have left only with 2 or 3 players. But earlier, how many were there? And it all started with price wars. Second, what Michael Porter says is, are there any substitutes, alternatives? Because alternatives will also create issue. Because if your product is very expensive, customer will look for an alternative. But if there is no alternative, then it's okay. What is the alternative to phone calls? Jio and Airtel are looting us by charging high amount. Even if you say, boss, I don't want data, just give me one basic package to make calls. I don't want to make outgoing also. Give me just incoming. Is there an option like that now? Somebody who just want incomings also has to spend an average of 200 rupees for 28 days. So why that option is not there? I don't want data. I don't want calls. I just want incoming. So give me service for that. The answer is option is not there. And is there an alternative for me? Is there an internet phone which I can use? Satellite call. So we don't have that option. So maybe in the future, when Elon Musk comes with Starlink, we can expect some sort of disruption. But unfortunately, right now we don't have alternative. Except accepting for what Jio and Airtel is offering, we don't have any alternative option. And this lack of alternative is empowering both the companies. In fact, both the companies are acting like cartel now. Both have mutually agreed and both are increasing the prices. And consumer has no option, no alternative, no voice. But on the other hand, if you have too many options, what will you do? You will switch and the company which is offering will get impacted because there are so many substitute products available in the market. So if there are no substitutes, it's a good sign. But if there are, then the company will struggle. Third is pertaining to bargaining power. And when the customer will have bargaining power? Customer will have bargaining power when there are too many alternatives. But when there are no alternatives, you don't have bargaining power. When you go to multiplex to watch movie, are you spending 500 rupees on popcorn? Do you have bargaining power there? Can you ask for discount? But if there are too many options, forget about you. Automatically, the seller only will give you an option and reduce the prices. So if there are no substitutes, customers lacks bargaining power. But when there are too many alternatives, customer will always have a bargaining power. Now, from the supply side, bargaining power of suppliers is also important. Because in order to manufacture a product, you also need inputs. You have to source your raw material. And in case if you have too many options, then it's okay. It's a good sign. Because if not supplier X, I'll get it from supplier Y. And suppliers don't have bargaining power because too many people are there as suppliers in the market. But when there are limited suppliers, then unfortunately, that will be an issue. Right? So this is also one of the factors which investors also look for. If you're a startup, I want to know how you're doing sourcing of your material. And in case if you're dependent on only one person, one supplier, I don't want to invest in your company. Because if there's any disruption, your entire production process will halt. So therefore, this factor is equally important from the supply side. And last, but the most important one, are there any barriers to entry? When a new player thinks of entering your industry, you should get scared and reverse this decision. Have you set any of those barriers? I'm a startup. I want to offer a new cold drink brand, a carbonated beverage. Will I survive in the market? What do you think? I have come up with one Desi masala soda. Can I survive in the market? If yes, for how long? If you're a Bangalorean, you would have tasted this carbonated beverage called Bindu. Is it still there in the market? Have you seen them on shelves of supermarkets, in your canteen, somewhere else? But in between, it made a lot of sound, right? It became popular. But what happened? Coke also made masala soda. Easily, what is the barrier entry to this industry? Brand name. A well-established brand can be a barrier. So smaller players will never think of doing business if the industry is occupied by big brands. Because their brand itself is a barrier for me. I cannot compete with such big brands. Can I compete with Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and now Campa Cola also? Reliance itself is struggling to compete with Coke and Pepsi. So can a small player think of doing this business? So what is an example of barrier to entry? well established brand can be a barrier.